everyone, welcome to the Nissan EV Owners channel. I'm Paul Eden. This is a Nissan LEAF. This one is a 2016 Generation 1 car. I've owned it for a little over 3 years and added 30,000 miles to it. Way back in 2009, long before Tesla et al. Graced our roads, Nissan showed the world this car and it went on sale the following year. The launch car was almost identical externally to this example, same colour, same wheels. It became the first mass-produced fully electric car and was the world's best-selling EV until 2020. By 2022, it had more than 500,000 LEAFs sold worldwide, and there are currently over 49,000 of them registered in the UK. That's a little more than 0.1% of all UK vehicles. By comparison, the most popular EV, the Tesla Model 3, has 77,000 registered on British roads. The LEAF is interestingly the most sought EV. There's 700-ish presumably parked up, permanently plugged in and in use as a home battery. CHAdeMO makes this easier to do than CCS2, but it's still non-trivial to get working. North American markets were built in Smyrna, Tennessee from January 2013, with the Sunderland operation starting a couple of months later, serving the European, UK, Australia and New Zealand markets. Nissan's factory in Palma, Japan built all of the cars prior to that. The first cars had a 24 kilowatt hour battery. In 2016, the battery size was increased to 30 kilowatt hours. This pale blue is not, as my wife suggests, baby blue. Officially, it's sonic blue. I like it a lot. This car's done 83,000 miles. It's 10 out of 12 battery health bars, which is about 75% health remaining. So probably around 20 kilowatt hours of actual capacity. We'll see the gauges in a moment. Fully charged, it has a range of about 90 miles, though I usually daily charge it to about 60% for my commute, which is 32 miles a day. In the summer, it returns about 5.6 miles per kilowatt hour. Yes, 5.6. I'm not even trying particularly hard. I reckon I could get to 5.8 if I really tried. It's Acenta trim, which is the mid-range for this Generation 1 car. Vizio was below it, though those cars are very rare. And Tecna is the top range trim. Tecna gets bigger 17-inch wheels, all-round cameras. Acenta only gets the reversing camera. Tecna also gets Bose stereo, better headlights, heated seats, steering wheel and mirrors. Let's look over the driver's position. The steering wheel adjusts for rake but not reach, but otherwise the driving position is good with the pedals set level and straight in front of the driver. There's a well-placed footrest for my left foot, Tecno MG. It's at the same distance and pitch as the pedals. The glove box is bigger than many large cars, and there's a couple of cup holders here, though they can't safely take a tall cup. It's a good inclined cubby here and a good sized bin under the armrest. The drive selector is here. You get neutral by holding the selector against its spring. You can go from neutral to reverse or drive without being on the brake pedal. To come out of park, you must have a foot on the brake pedal. And the park brake is down here, just left of where your clutch would be if you were in a nasty ice car. Top tip, use the park brake occasionally to keep it nice and free and not avoid any nasty MOT surprises. The infotainment is 2010s vintage, but it has a really good DAB radio, USB socket, Bluetooth, and behind this panel a CD slot. Make sure the SD card is present if you're looking to buy one of these. The sat-nav won't work without it. The system is responsible with very little discernible lag. It looks dated, but it works just fine. The sat-nav, it's okay. Mine hasn't been updated since 2018, but I still use it in preference to any other navigational system. It's perfectly reliable. The audio system is good if lacking in a little punch. The hands-free phone function is very clear for both caller and receiver, much better than some more modern systems. Remember, this car comes from the middle of the 2010s. A lot of family cars did not have these levels of equipment back then. The dash and instrument cluster are unusual, but not annoyingly so. Remember that Nissan were breaking new ground with this car. No one had really done this before. This mini gauge cluster here shows the speedo. I adore this. You can see it without peering through the steering wheel. It's almost a heads-up display, it's so high. The rest of the gauges are clear in this pale blue. Climate control, volume, tuning, seek, all are proper buttons. Wipers have their own stalk, as do lights and indicators. Let's have a quick look at the main elements in the instrument cluster. Left is the battery temperature. It will normally read between 3 and 5. The line of bubbles across the top of the screen show power output to the right or regen to the left. Below usually is the battery charge level, though that will also show doors that are not closed. The odometer and the drive mode are here too. This is the predicted range or guessometer. It's particularly inaccurate and even more so as the battery ages. These bars, again, are state of charge. There's 12 in total, and this is the all-important battery state of health. This car has 10 bars, which means a battery health of between 79 and 72%. The timers for charging and conditioning the climate while plugged in are on this screen. There's enough headroom for me. I'm 5'8". I've had taller people drive this car without any real problem. There's a crank to lower or raise the seat, but I've never needed to use it. The mirrors are just the right size, though they aren't heated on this Acenta trim level car, and they fold with this button. The windows are deep but don't expose you too much, and the glass fully retracts into the door. I hate it when they don't. All trim levels get automatic climate control. In the hot weather, the air conditioning is plenty powerful enough to cool the cabin quickly. The Nissan app no longer works for early generation 1 cars, but you can still set the climate control with in-car timers. As with all EVs, regenerative braking harvests energy that would otherwise be wasted by brake discs. If I'm honest, I wish this would recover more energy, was more aggressive. In B mode, the regeneration is most prevalent. In D mode, it's much less active. B mode is where you're going to do most of your driving, with cruise control and speed limiter taking much of your workload. I don't like the brakes. The brakes aren't smooth. The car doesn't handle the transition between regen doing most of the retardation to the friction brakes taking over. There's a slight lurch and I don't like it at all. On the steering wheel there's also the Eco button. This cuts throttle response, so is good for very slow stop-start driving. In the back of the car, the door aperture is plenty big enough, and the rear axle doesn't intrude badly, and unlike many EVs, the floor isn't high. Remember, the battery pack is under here. My rear passengers don't complain about their accommodation. In fact, they prefer it to our other car, an MG5, which is nominally the family hauler. There's loads of room back here. It's a genuine 5-seater, and again, the deep glass disappears almost completely into the car. It's a hatchback, and the boot floor is a little high because there's more battery under the floor. There's 394 litres of space here, and if you drop the back seats, it's 1,176 litres. It doesn't give a flat floor though. The emergency inflation goo kit is under here, and there's a few rather small cubby holes there as well. There's some good strong tie down eyes, and the tonneau cover hides your junk. What's it like to drive? Well, the steering is light and the wheel feels nice to use and grip even over long distances, though clearly you won't be powering through any multi-hour driving sessions in this. The steering wheel buttons are a little small and ergonomically not perfect, though they still feel solid and react well on this 8-year-old car. The A-pillar's wider than I would like, though much of that is cabin trim and panel. Nissan disappointingly failed to improve this in later versions. The seat is really very good, one of the best things about this car. It's a very nice place to be, and it bears the driver's weight very well. I've been in newer, more expensive cars and got out of them wishing I'd been sat in my Leaf. The seat is electrically adjustable, though as we drive more cars without a clutch, this becomes less crucial. Interior plastic are not premium, but they are hard wearing and just about good enough. There's some glossy material here that never looked clean enough for me. All the switchgear feels strong and there's no sensation of flimsy. It all inspires confidence. The ride's very nice. This car's 16-inch wheels are just right in my opinion, and the suspension is compliant. It doesn't much like high-speed corners. The back of the car feels unsettled if you push it or dive into a roundabout with a rough road surface. But the front grips admirably. On the straights, it's true and doesn't tramline at all. It's quiet at speed, while still communicating an accurate sensation of progress and road surface. The little fins on top of the headlights are said to channel air away from the A-pillar and the door mirrors to reduce wind noise, though the Generation 2 car did away with them and is just as quiet. Personally, I'm not a fan of the design of that part of the car. Sure, it's distinctive, and remember, this was the middle of the 2010s, so it was a new look for cars at the time. Around town, the electric drivetrain gives the car a nippy ability to dart around. It responds really well to throttle. Unless you've got loads of lock applied, the traction control doesn't need to interfere. And it will change direction well. The electric motor puts 80 kilowatts through the front axle. That's 107 bhp. That's not much compared to modern EVs, though it's torquey. 187 pound-foot, and that comes on tap the moment you press the accelerator and keeps on throughout the range. Acceleration is remarkably linear and there's seamless power. While not going to win many traffic light Grand Prix, we'll keep on shoving you all the way up to an indicated 100 miles per hour. 0 to 60 is a leisurely 11.5 seconds. That really doesn't feel that long when you do it. Talking of indicated speed, the speedo overreads by about 10%. Most cars overread a little bit, but 10% does seem excessive to me. Overall dimensions, it's right in the middle of C-segment hatchback territory at 4.5 metres in length. It's still narrower than some of its competition at 1788mm, as befits a city car, though the doors are slim and the cabin doesn't feel cramped. The wheels are pushed right out to the corners as you'd expect for a car that lives and works in the city. Wheelbase is 2700mm. Don't forget that long wheelbase in an EV helps free up space for the battery. More about that later. Leaf turning circle is just under 11 metres, which is a little wider than most front-wheel drive cars, but if you do run out of room, its ability to quickly change between drive and reverse helps out a lot. Build quality is exceptional. Leaf has built an enviable reputation for both reliability and how well it's put together. The chaps at Sunderland factory really know how to put these things together, and that's reflected in the solidity of the car and the total absence of creaks and rattles even 84,000 miles later. Indeed, among EVs, this is one of the most reliable cars you can buy. At 1500 kilograms, it's a couple of hundred kilos heavier than similarly sized ICE cars, but if you compare it to other EVs in its class, it's something of a lightweight. Under hard braking, and I've only really buried the pedal once, the ABS took over a tiny bit late, but it stopped the car admirably and kept it straight, even though the road surface was poor. We can't avoid it. Let's talk about charging. This particular car has the optional 6 kilowatt charger. Most Gen 1 cars didn't have this, they came with a 3 kilowatt unit. This means I can charge the car almost as fast as a domestic charger can go. So in layman's terms, a kilowatt is a measurement of energy, a lot like a horsepower, and a kilowatt hour is a kilowatt working for an hour. This means a kilowatt hour is also an amount of energy, not unlike a gallon. Anyway, science bit over. My car with a 6 kilowatt charger connected to my Hypervolt at home for 2 hours will get 12 kilowatt hours. As it happens, that's more than enough to do my daily commute. The actual connector on Gen 1 Leafs and many other older EVs is known as a Type 1 connector, and it's here in the nose of the car under this flap. You can open this flap from either the remote or from a button in the cabin. Moving on, this is the infamous CHAdeMO connector. This is for rapid charging. In practice, this means about 30 kilowatts depending on how charged the battery is when you plug it in. As the battery charge builds up, the rate of charge drops off. CHAdeMO charging is typically what you do away from home. It's a lot more expensive. My home charger using Octopus Go costs about 8 pence per kilowatt hour on its overnight tariff. A rapid charger which uses commercial electricity suppliers will cost more. Rates of 70 to 80 pence are not uncommon. There will be some fast chargers out and about. Most supermarkets have them, and there'll be 7 kilowatt things. Prices vary, some are free. Consult your charger finder app such as ZapMap or ABRP for more info. As regards rapids, always have their own cable. We call them tethered. Fast and slow chargers are usually untethered, and you'll need to provide your own cable. For a Generation 1 Leaf, you need a Type 2 to Type 1 cable. This is mine, green and curly. The Type 2 goes here, and the Type 1 goes here. Point have with pod points at Tesco's, you have to confirm the charge within a few minutes. There's the pod point app. There it is. We need to know one more thing about rapid charging. It heats up the battery pack, and as we said earlier, Leaf has no thermal management. It has no way of losing excess heat. Other Nissans such as a rear ENV200 and Townstar have systems that cool the battery using the vehicle's air conditioning system, but Leaf doesn't have this. Why? Well, because the designers thought that it would be mostly a city car and wouldn't be subject to repeated rapid charges. For most owners, this just isn't a problem. This car has got hot enough that thermal management would have kicked in only twice in the 3 years I've had it. And even then, on those 2 occasions, charge speed was lowered to mitigate the heating effect. The rest of the time, I'd have been driving around with this heavy and expensive system on the car that wasn't doing anything. In short, if you're doing most of your charging at home, thermal management, or the lack of it, just isn't an issue. Let's talk about the 2080 rule. Nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries like this one do not like being charged more than 80% or discharged below 20%. It stresses the battery and shortens its life. An extra 100% charge if you need extra range for a trip won't hurt, but the less time it is left over 80, the better. And likewise, heating the battery up a few times on a road trip with multiple rapids won't do any lasting damage. Just keep the heat gauge out of red where possible. A monthly charge to 100% is said by some to help calibrate the battery management system. Some say this should be a rapid charge, but there's no evidence for this. When I say don't charge it below 20%, I mean it. If you do, charge it back up to 20 as soon as possible. People who say a full discharge to 0 is good are very wrong. Don't do it. It stresses the battery pack. Last thing you shouldn't do is top up the charge. Run it below 50% before putting it back on charge. Again, an occasional contravention of these guidelines, if you must, won't hurt, but you should get into the habit of managing your charging accordingly. The eagle-eyed among you will notice that there are many more CCS2 connectors than CHAdeMO. There's no getting around it. CHAdeMO is an outgoing standard. It's being replaced by CCS2, but don't let that worry you. There's still plenty to go around. Right now, CHAdeMO are still being installed, and that's happening faster than people are buying new Leafs. So you might say CHAdeMO is actually becoming more common, not less. Anyway, The vast majority of Leafs are charged at home, so they don't care about CHAdeMO. What about warranty? Well, this is one of the most reliable cars you can buy. Even ones as old as this, you'll still want the reassurance of a warranty. For 8 years or 100,000 miles, the state of health guarantee protects against capacity loss below 9 bars. The main warranty covers for 3 years or 60,000 miles. That's long gone for this one. Servicing, yeah, these are way simpler than any other internal combustion engine car, but they still need looking after. I have a maintenance package with Nissan called Good to Go that covers servicing, MOT, breakdown cover and extended warranty. Other qualified garages can do it. Look for Hevra membership. It'd be remiss of me to not mention Cleveland EV at this point. Their mobile techs cover the mainland and their reputation is unmatched. MOTs are as any other car, though they often don't take as long to do. My home charger, Hypervolt 2, has an app, and you should get the companion app for your home charger. The other apps you'll want are for charging away from home. ZabMap and ABRP are good. If you're an Octopus Energy customer, get their Electroverse card too. Most rapid chargers can be started without an app, though if you do use a charger's app, you may pay less for that charge. There are EVs that are better looking, faster, better equipped and longer ranged than Leaf, but not many that have as much value or are as efficient. Not many that can regularly turn in figures as good as 4 or 5 miles per kilowatt hour. Cars not unlike mine can be snapped up for a couple of grand. It's a solid, capable, family 5-seater for the eco-conscious. Perhaps it's most outstanding, like mine, as a second car. It's fantastically cheap to run if you have the right electricity tariff. If you have solar panels, it might even be free. With a lively and friendly community over at the Nissan EV Owners UK group on Facebook, there's a wealth of experience with combined mileage covering many millions of miles. Thank you for watching this, my first car review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or if you found it useful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you again and goodbye.